Hi everyone, this is Sultan and this is a video I've created to show you one of the university projects that I have created along with two of my batchmates. So this is a project called Image Resizer which we created using Python and PyCharm, and the people involved in this is me, which is Chokdar Shakhwat Sultan, then there is Arman Hussain, and then there is AR Arafat Rahman. So three of us worked on this project and we have created this small program or small application where we can resize images from the computer. Okay, so let me just show you the codes and how the program works right away. So let's get started. As you can see, I'm on PyCharm and I've already opened the Python file that I've used to create the program. Now before I start explaining anything, I have to inform you that I've imported some of these modules, CV2, tkinter, system. So CV2, in order to import this, you need to download the interpreter openCV Python, which you can do by going to File, Settings, and here in Python interpreter, this is where you can add it. See, I've already added openCV Python here. So once you get that time you can import CV2. So CV2 here I'm going to use to manipulate the images, tkinter I'm going to use to open file dialog menus, and system I'm going to use just for one purpose only, to exit the software, to exit the application. Alright, so now let me show you the basics. As you can see, I have created the basic program where initially these are the messages that will be running, and then I've called the main function. So as you can see, I've also created a main function. Inside here there are a lot of conditions through which all the other methods or functions are called in for the software to work. Okay, so initially let me just run the software and show you how it's gonna work. So let me run it, and as you can see, at the beginning I only printed the image resizer and the names of who created this, so that came in, and then I've called in the main function. So let me move up to the codes for main function. Initially I've taken an input into a variable and I've given people choices. You can see if someone presses 1, he can resize the image according to scale factor. Someone presses 2, he can resize using manual dimensions. If he presses 3, he can change the width of the image. If he presses 4, he can change the height of the image, and if he presses 0, the program will end. Okay, so those are the options, and to make that happen I have created the conditions right here. So for each of this image editing methods to make each of this image editing possible, I've created separate methods for the separate options. Alright, so let me just explain each. So you can see I've at first created a condition that if the value is a, it's going to run the first resizing function. If the value of a is 2, it's going to run the second one. If it's 3, it's going to run the third one, and so on. Now then here is a part where I said if someone presses 0, you're going to exit the program. Okay, and finally I've added an else, which is going to call another function. Now why did I add this part? This one, there is no sixth option here, right? So this one actually does is this creates a loop, so that if you input something wrong, the program can reschedule and restart, and it can let you choose the options again. For example, here I have the 5 options. Let me press something other than the 5 option. Let's say I'm pressing a 9. Alright, so if I press enter, you'll see it says it's wrong input and it gives me the 5 options again. Okay, so that's the purpose of this part, and let me just go to the code area of that. This is really small. All I did was I printed the message and I just reinitiated the main function. Okay, now let me show you the exit process as well. So this is the direct code for exit. There is no function created for this, you don't need to. So let me just press 0 and you can see this has ended. Alright, so now let me just run the program again, and now I'll be showing you one by one all of these functions. So when you press 1, this is gonna resize the image as per scale factor. So let me just see the conditioner. If the value is a, it's gonna call the function called res1. Why don't I move up to the function for res1 to see what's inside it? So this is res1, you can see. So initially I have called the root and root window I've called the root, and I've withdrawn the windows for tkinter, and I've also initiated the topmost for the root attributes. Alright, so next I've created a file dialog to ask open file name. So this is what allows a person to choose a file from their computer, alright, on their own, and the program will collect the file name automatically into this variable called file path. Let me just show you. Let me just press 1, and you can see it's letting me choose an image, and since I chose the attributes to be topmost, it came on top of the software. So I'll choose this one, this image, and I'll click on open, and now it's asking for a scale factor. Now before I move on to the scale factor, let me tell you that when this file path dialog ran, it already collected the address of the image when I chose the image, and then based on this address, it's also loading or reading the image into the memory using this imread function, alright, which I called through CV2. Next comes the time when I'm taking an input for the scale factor. Now a scale factor is basically you're going to give a factor, and that's going to be multiplied to the sizes or the dimensions of the image. So let's say I want to reduce the image into half, so let me just give 0.5, and now next is it's gonna ask me to give a file name with extension. So I'm gonna collect a file name that you might want to save it with. So let's say I want to save it with resized scale factor. .jpg. Make sure you input a valid extension there. So now when I press enter, you can see the output has come out and it's been resized into a smaller version. Right, so what happened here is that right after I took the file name, here is the calculation part. When I use image.shape array with 1 as the value, it's going to collect the original width of the image. Same goes for the height, it's going to collect the original height when I use 0 here, and I have multiplied the scale factor with each of the dimensions. Now once I found each of the dimensions, I saved them in the variables width and height, and I added them to the list for dimension. Now next I created a calculated function, calculation here within a variable called resized, where I called the resize function from CV2. Here I have to use the parameters where img represents the image which I have stored by using imread earlier, the dimension represents the height and the width of the image, and this one does the calculation for the resizing. So once the resizing is done, I have used imshow to show the output, which you just saw right here, and you can see the name is file name, where I saved the name of the file that I wanted to give manually, and I used a set window property as the topmost. Now the reason this one didn't come in the topmost is because I have a screen recorder on, but usually when you get the output, this usually comes on top of all the programs. Alright. Next I've used an imwrite function from CV2 which creates the file, and this file is going to be saved in the folder where you have the project present. So let me just try showing you that. Let me just take you to C drive, users, my projects, and you can see this is the image I have generated. So it's gonna be saved into the project folder. Alright, so next I've used the wait key. This is gonna keep the window open. If I would use any value here, then the window would be closed automatically after that amount of time, and I use destroy all windows to remove all extra windows that have been stored in the memory while the software ran. Okay, and then I exited the program. If I wouldn't exit it here, the program would probably run into the next function even if I didn't want it to, so I had to exit the program here. Alright, so that's it. I showed you the first option. Let us move on to the second option. Alright, so let me just close this and the program will end, or I could have just stopped it here. So now let me just run the program again, and this time I'll show you the second option. The second option, if I go back to my main function, it says if the value is 2, it's going to run the function res2. So let me just move on to that function. As you can see, this is res2. So let me just press 2. and it's gonna ask me to choose an image. I'm choosing the same image. So now here you can see the first few things are the same until I collect the image. So once the image is collected, it's all the same. The image is read into the memory. Now the change here is that instead of taking a scale factor, I'm taking an input for the width and the height directly from the user. Now once I collect those values, I directly save them into the dimension list, which I'll be using for the resizing of the image. And naturally I'll be asking for the file name. Before that, let me just input the width. Let's say I want the width to be 200 and I want the height to be 700. Okay, so now I'm asking for a file name, so let's say resized dimension 1.jpg. Remember to give the proper extension or this is gonna run into an error. So once I give the name, you can see the image was resized according to the height and the width both. Okay, so let me just close that and let me just show you that this was saved into the project folder already. Okay, so everything is pretty much the same as the previous function, just that here I'm collecting the width and height separately. I'm not retrieving it from the original image, and I'm using them directly to calculate the resizing of the image. Right, now the next option here is to resize only the width. So here in this option I can only resize the width. So let me run the program and go to the main functions. You can see I've added a condition that if it's a is equal to 3, then it's gonna load res3. So let me go to the function for res3. It's right here. So as you can see, the things are almost exactly the same as before. All I need to do is change the part where I collect the width and the height. So here, since I'm allowing a user to change the width, I'm taking an input from the user, and for the height I'm just loading the default height of the image. Okay, so basically the image height will not be changed in the output, only the width will be changed. Okay, so it's not scaling or keeping the aspect ratio. So next I'm going to take the file name. So first let me just choose number 3 for execution, and it's going to choose the image. So let me choose the image. Once I have the image, I can input any width I want. So let's say I want the width to be 100. Alright, so now it's going to ask for the file name. So let's say resized width.jpg, and you can see the file has been resized by the width. The height remained the same. This is the original height of the image, just the width changed. Let me just close this, and as you can see, it was saved in my project folder as well. Okay, so rest of the thing is pretty much the same. There's nothing changed. You create a new file, use wait key, destroy, exit. So now the fourth option is to resize by the height. It's almost the same as the width. So here I've added a condition. If it's a is equal to 4, it's going to load the function res4. So let me just go to the function res4. There you go. So here you can see the early codes are the same. I'm just gonna change the part here where I take the input of the sizes. So here I can collect the height from the user while loading the default width of the image. Okay, so let me just run this and choose the option number 4. This is to resize the image by the height only. So once I load, it's asking for the height. So let's say I'm choosing the height 700, and it's asking for a name. So let me just name it resized height.jpg, and you can see the image has been resized with the height. The width is the same. This is the default width of the original image. So that's exactly what this does, this program. That's all the functions you saw. There's nothing more to it. It's really simple, and I've just created 4 different functions to run the resizing. Now you can see there are a lot of things that are redundant, which I could have optimized, but right now I'm still not that expert in Python, so I wasn't confident in compressing them into an optimized way. So I just kept it as simple as possible to me and wrote everything down. So let me just give a quick scroll across the code to show you all the codes. So these are the ones I imported. Now this is the first function, which is resizing by scale factor. So you can see all the options here. Now this is the second option, which is resize by the custom dimensions. You can see all the options here. Now this is the third function, to resize by the width only, and you can see the options here. This is the fourth option, where you resize by the height only. So let me just scroll. I think I made a small mistake here. This is for the height. So there you go. So this is for the height only. So if I scroll down, now this is the function. This is the function to reinitiate the program if a wrong input is given. This is the main function where I've added all the conditions, and here I have an extra layer to make sure someone can exit as well. If they press 0, I take an input, they put the value, based on that the action is taken place. And this is the initialization of the program, where I indicated who created the program and I called in the main function. So that's it. That's the project we created for our university, and using Python. And basically I thought this was a great experience for me and my batchmates who worked on researching on how to do this. The main challenge we faced initially was how we can let someone collect a custom path. Should we take input, or even if we take input, how is that going to be stored? Right, so we are facing a lot of issues. We did some research, then we learned about the CV2 module, then we learned about the tkinter module. And the tkinter is the main reason we managed to get that option that someone can choose any image from their system and use that to resize it. And the CV2 is the one that helped us resize the image ultimately, because we used the resize function from CV2. So that made it easier for us. So this was a great experience. These are new things we learned. The other things are pretty simple, function calling and using if, elif and else. These are pretty simple stuff that we learned earlier. So those CV2, tkinter, resizing, opening a file dialog box to collect an image from the system, all those were pretty new to us, and it really helped us gain a great experience. And we think this software, or this program that we created, is pretty useful to many if we can develop this into a further advanced program. Although I know there are a lot of programs available there, so we can think of designing it separately in the future. But so for now, based on our amateur expertise, this is the best we could come up with. Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a nice day.